Hi there, welcome to another interview. Today I'd like to introduce you to Horst Kalcher. He studied Japanese studies and has been involved in the martial arts and fighting sports for decades. He studied kickboxing, Muay Thai, Filipino martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu intensively. In the 1990s, he lived in Japan for a time and reported from the K1 tournaments at that time. And yeah, I'm very glad that you're here, that you have time for this interview.
Thank you.
The first question is about your martial arts career. I would be very interested in the things you have done. So could you please give us an insight in your journey through the martial arts?
So basically it started back in 1982 when I started in Salzburg, Austria. What we did basically at that time was called still full contact karate, which basically was a predecessor of kickboxing. What we did, we trained with boxing gloves, sneakers on, but we had low kicks, we had knees. So basically I would say it was something like Kyokushin Karate with gloves on. Mm-hmm. When we did competitions, it was kickboxing rules, full contact at that time. No low kicks, all the kicks above waist. So that I did for several years and competed in kickboxing. Then when I went to Japan, I lived in Osaka for several years, and Seto Kaikan headquarters was there, and Seto Kaikan from Kazuyoshi Ishii, he's the founder of K1. And so basically in the evenings we would train Seto Kaikan Karate, which basically is one of those full connect styles, which came from Kyokushin, Ashihara Karate, and then Seto Kaikan. And for some of the guys, the higher ranked guys, there was 5 or 6 of them, they trained kickboxing. They were basically the pros. And when I was there was end of 92 I started to train there, or beginning 93. It was just the time when Andy Hook from Switzerland, they came there. And then they found out that I speak Japanese, he speaks German, so basically I was his personal translator for several times. So basically I had to take him out for lunch and dinner, and we trained together in the morning, and whenever there were bigger events, then I would have to translate and interpret for him. And that was the time when I started to write for the magazines. Mm-hmm. Because at that time there was one big German magazine, the Karate Journal. And I told him, I live in Japan now, I train with Seto Kaikan. K1 was just starting at that time. Then I started to write for those magazines. And that involved, then for 93, I wrote my first articles. Around 15 up to 17 years I wrote for various martial arts magazines. German, Dutch, Swedish, Australians, British magazines. And then, end of 95, I came back to Austria to finish my studies at university. And at that time in Austria, there was no kickboxing, no Thai boxing, but I trained, which is called K1 now, in Japan, so I wanted to go on with that. So the only thing I could find, which was with contact, with low kick, with knees, was Kyokushin Karate. So I trained then. And then for me, that was an interesting step, because it was a little bit a step back, because from punching to the head, from kickboxing, suddenly there's no punches to the head. You have to train without gloves, you have to learn to block everything. That for me was the biggest challenge at that moment. The kicking, knees, everything was the same, it's just not punching people in the head. Mm-hmm. And to learn to block punches to the body, okay, which you have to block a little bit different as you would do in boxing, kickboxing. And then I had this old Bruce Lee quote in the head, and I thought, okay, for the whole blocking without gloves, Wing Chun would be nice, but then it's too different. And there's this one saying from Bruce Lee when he said, Filipino martial arts are like Wing Chun but with sticks. Mm-hmm. Okay, that sounds interesting, because I didn't want to join any Wing Chun classes. I thought, okay, let's pick up some eskrima. And then I started that way. Then later I met Peter Wecker, who runs Sami quite successfully now. And together we went to Holland, to Frans Struven, Dosje Paris Eskrima. We went to train a lot with Bob Green in London. So I followed that road a little bit. And then in 2006, I moved to Spain and to Barcelona. And in Barcelona, Robin Gracie is there. He's the youngest son of the Gracie family. And there I started to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I trained with him. And then some pupils of him, they founded MMA Barcelona. And then I trained MMA with those guys. Basically, they were all brown and black belts of Robin Gracie. So they had very funded Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu knowledge. Some guys came from kickboxing. Basically, we were like 10, 15, 20 guys that came from different backgrounds. Some guys that came to the States to train. Rushin Juret was there, he was very successful. Jan Cabral came directly from Brazil. He trained with us, who was later a big name in Brazilian MMA. And basically, yeah, that's the whole story so far.
Yeah, but that's an amazing story. And what I can see is that that you all the time trained outside the box. That you weren't focused just on one discipline. You always looked for more.
Yeah, because I think you find that no discipline is perfect. There always lacks technically or whatever. So my main thing always was kickboxing. So I always was into contact and a lot of partner training. Kyokushin, of course, was the same thing. Of course, different rules. Then the Holy Screamer thing for me was the first step into martial art. I say it's a vast art. There's so many smaller disciplines in between you can train. There's double stick, single stick, knife, Spade, dagger, the whole weapon thing. It's big. If you want to train it for a realistic purpose, you have to train a little bit different, I would say. But as a martial arts, fantastic. And of course, ground was always missing. And when I started with ground, it was just booming a little bit. But in Central Europe, at that time, beginning of 2000s, there was nearly nobody there. So Robin Gracie in Barcelona at that time was the address.
So you have seen, or you are familiar with both worlds, the world of sport, with kickboxing and Muay Thai, and also with the martial art, with the Filipino martial arts. So how do you think about it? How does these different worlds fit together?
The one is form of the other. One doesn't exist without the other. I always put it that way. Basically, you have three reasons, in my opinion, whether people who train or start training martial arts. One would be self-defense, the other one would be sport, and the rest is fun if you want to do. If you don't have any certain purpose, which I would say the majority, 95% of all the people who train martial arts, they do it because they like the movement, for fitness, for fun, as I refer to it. And at the end, it doesn't really matter what you train, because you like the movement, you like the camaraderie, whatever. If you do it for sports reason, martial arts fantastic, you can choose whatever you want.
Yeah. You
can, if you like throwing, you do judo. If you like ground, you do jiu-jitsu, punching, kicking. You can choose no contact, little bit of contact, kick, Thai boxing, or nowadays MMA. So you can choose whatever you want. Yeah. Even in karate, in traditional things, you want to fight, you do kumite, or you want to do kata also. And I always put it that way. For martial arts, there are 2,000 techniques. If you do combat sports, it cuts down to maybe 10 techniques, which you actually can use. If you do self-defense, it's 2 techniques.
Okay.
If you train more, it will never work.
Yeah.
So one doesn't exist. You can't do martial sports without martial arts. I think in German we have it a little bit easier because we have Kampfkünste, martial arts, and Kampfsport, martial sports.
Yeah.
But you need a base in one, and then you can cut it down and say, okay, out of those 2,000 techniques I know, for competition, I can use those 5 techniques.
Yeah. But you say it's not that you can train A or you train B. You can put them together. So sport and art works together?
It depends how far you want to get. So those people, and I've written for the martial arts magazines for more than 15 years, and the people on the top, of course, you have to concentrate, even nowadays. We have Bettina Blank now in Austria, got third at the Olympic Games in Tokyo in karate, in kumite. I don't think she will train a lot of kyo and a lot of kata, because we all have limited time, and even if she trains twice a day, she has to concentrate on kumite, on her 5 special techniques, or 3 step, whatever. But for the base, of course, she has to start with martial arts. But as soon as you get in the sports world, I think technically you have to cut it down.
Okay. Yeah.
So the holy trinity, like in karate, kihon, kata, kumite. Even we have the cello sisters here in Austria who are quite successful. I don't think they train a lot of kumite. They're very good in kata, and I think
if you like to, if you're in sport and if you like to get to the top, you have to concentrate on the discipline. I have another very interesting question. When we look at most of the traditional disciplines in Japan, like let's say karate, there we have a lot of kata. So the tradition was transmitted from one generation to the other with the kata. And when I look at kickboxing, Muay Thai, also I think the Filipino martial arts, they don't have the kata. So again, a question: How do you think about that? Is there today is there a meaning in the kata? Is it useful to train kata? So that I don't mean that you train, that you know a kata and you train it 5 times in a training session. I mean that you get up in the morning and you train a kata 50 times. So you really put a lot of energy in finding, let's say, the perfect kata.
Yeah, for me, kata always from the beginning was a big mystery. Why people train forms, and I had a lot of discussions over many years with different people. Coming from a kickboxing background, I never understood it. Why would I train a solo performance? Because kickboxing, Thai boxing, whatever, even eskrima, is a lot of partner training with more or less contact, but it's partner training. So for me, as they always explained, kata is ritualized fight against various opponents. I said, yeah, but why should I fight like somebody else? I mean, in boxing you do shadow boxing, but everybody does it differently. In kickboxing, of course, it's shadow boxing. In the Filipino martial arts, there's something like karateka, which is also basically shadow boxing. And due to the Second World War, there's a big influence of martial art, Japanese martial arts. So some styles do have forms, but it's because of the Japanese influence. In traditional Filipino martial arts, there were not too many forms. So I never understood it, what you do in a form, and why would I move like that? Because it's ritualized, which if you're a beginner, that you can explain. But as soon as it gets a little bit complicated, I said, okay, what am I doing with this movement? And that for me always was the big thing, especially when I started with Kyokushin, when I came back to Austria in 95, 96. Because there we had a lot of discussions, because we had a lot of people who liked forms. And I said, no, I don't do the forms, because why should I? It looks nice. Nothing against it, but I don't see any reason in it. Doesn't help me. If I want to know how to fight, I work on the back, I work on pads, I work on the tight pads, whatever, do partner training. But the explanation, no, we did it because there are secret techniques in there. I said, yeah, but look, in boxing I have the same thing. And I don't train like, who would be there, like Graciano 70 years ago. So for me, why kata is so important in karate, I really don't understand it. And then when I did my karate trainer through the Austrian Karate Federation, we had one thing that I said, from a sports scientific point of view, you need a goal and you have to find the best exercise is to reach that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was okay. What do I want? If it's secret fighting techniques, isn't there a better way I could train them than doing them alone in the air without a partner, without application? So, plus the other thing for me is even in Kyokushin, I don't fight like this. For me, the whole thing, Seido Kaikan, they just did 4 katas, and in Seido Kaikan comes Kyokushin Karate, Ashihara, and Seido Kaikan. And Ashihara, he also changed the katas.
Okay.
The Ashihara, he had all the Kyokushin katas, and then I said, there's no use for them, because we don't fight like this. And if you look at Ashihara katas, it's jab, block, low kick, knee, stuff like this, because that's the way we fight.
Okay.
So that's what our kata should look like.
Yeah.
And Seido Kaikan basically used similar katas. So that's the part which I did understand, because then I have ritual fighting techniques to which I can connect. But to a senshin, whatever, I don't know the applications. And I think a lot of people are still looking for the applications. And why should I train something when I don't know what I'm training actually?
And okay, I understand you. But if you know the application, is it then good to train the kata?
Then it's shadowboxing. I personally, if I say I have limited time, I would prefer partner work than doing it alone.
Okay.
And I think that's the biggest problem for most of the people.
Yeah.
We have limited time, and what do I do in those 2 hours I train?
Okay.
Should I do Kihon and run up and down a hall, doing this and kick 100 migraries in the air?
Yeah.
Or is it not more useful if I take a big bag, sandbag, whatever, and kick 100 migraries against a bag or whatever?
If you like to become a good fighter, or if you like to train for self-defense, you say that kata doesn't make any sense. There are better ways to train it.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't see a sense in kata because it's solo training against the air. So there's no resistance.
Yeah.
My big credo always is it depends. The big thing is the goal. What are you training for?
Yeah. Okay.
And normally I say it's self-defense, it's sports, or it's entertainment. Let's put it that way. If you train for entertainment, which I think 95% of us do, then it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Then do kata, do kihon, run up and down the hall, punch and kick in the air, work with pads, work on the ground, whatever.
Yeah.
Then basically you do it because you like the movement. If you have a certain goal for self-defense, look at systems like Krav Maga, Wing Chun, whatever. A lot of contact, a lot of partner training, partner drills, resistance training, because that's what's happening.
Yeah.
For sports, of course, you should do kata then.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your insight. You said there in the other, like Krav Maga or also in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you have a lot of partner work.
Yeah.
In what I've seen in Muay Thai, you have also a lot of hardening the shin or also the fists. And I'm currently working on a technique Toyama Sensei described in this book, Karate do Daihokan. It's about the Tora no Hoa or Nakataka Ipponken, and he also is talking about how to toughening the technique or hardening the technique. And I would interested in your opinion, how important is it in general in the martial art or in the sports field of the martial art to train with in karate with the makiwara or in kickboxing with pads or with the sandbag? Is this a very important part of the training?
For me it is, because I train with resistance. And if you just punch in the air, I don't think you can develop a powerful punch. So you need resistance, be it a partner, be it a bag, be it pads. Makiwara, I've never trained it, so I really don't know the merit of that. For powerful techniques, definitely. Toughening, we all did it when we were young and stupid, I like to say. We all kicked bags and pads. I can remember we had in 1985, we had a Japanese trainer there in Austria. and he came from Kyokushin, and he could kick out lanterns. And then I was 15 at that time, so he was just kicking the lanterns, and without it, the contact was loose, and then the lantern got dark. And when you're 15, like, oh, that's cool. And a year later, I also could do it. So we did a lot of hardening the shins, with sort of beer bottles and whatever, rolling thing, and kicking it back, and then kicking trees and everything. So basically, we did that quite a lot. Then I read, when I was in Japan, I read a very interesting article from Kurosaka Kenji, who is one of the founders of Japanese kickboxing. Kurosaki, he was the second man after Masoyama from Kyokushin. So basically, they founded Kyokushin together.
Okay.
And Kurosaki was the main coach in the early days of Kyokushin. And then in 64, they went to Thailand. It was 3 karate guys fighting 3 Thais. And he got beaten quite badly, and then he picked up kickboxing. So he was one of the driving forces in Japanese kickboxing. I think the first generation of all the big Japanese kickboxers in the 70s, they all came from him, or a lot of them. Fujiwara was there, Shima, they all came from him. Jan Blas, Michiro-chin, he founded Michiro-chin, the original one in Japan. And then even European kickboxing is highly influenced by him, or is a lot influenced by him. Jan Blas trained with him, there's Michiro Amsterdam now. The French guys, the names are not coming now. Brisson and Christian Sissois, he also trained with him. Basically, Dutch kickboxing, French kickboxing is heavily influenced by him. And he wrote a very nice, interesting article where he said it's complete rubbish to toughen your shins because you do great damage to your body. Because what you have all those micro fissures, and then they calcify, and then the body, the bone becomes stronger. But he said at the end you're just ruining your body. So just be a tough guy. Take it if you block a low kick. If you kick it in a fight, you have to take it. But like we all did in the young days, it's actually counterproductive on the long side.
We also did in the dojo a lot of hardening, all the hands were blue, and I was proud at that time to have a blue hand, so it's really crazy, but you think that you can have long time health issues, so something like the Empire Strikes Back, that 30-40 years later you get problems with your fingers?
It depends. If you look at all the old guys, Okinawan old guys, Uchiri, or all those guys, Higaona, if you look at his hands, I'm not quite sure if you can work with his hands. For sure, fantastic for punching, if that's what you want to do your whole life, punch people in the face. It would be interesting to see how those guys are doing, who did Makiwara and toughening their hands their whole life, how the fine motoric is still working. Nowadays I wouldn't do it that much, but now I'm not fighting anymore. The whole thing, for me, I must say, looking at traditional Japanese Okinawan training methods, in the old days I didn't value that too much, but then since the MMA days, it changed a lot, because suddenly you were punching with gloves on, and then you have the small gloves, and suddenly the hardening of the hands makes a sense. Because suddenly you have to make a proper fist. And in a boxing glove, if you have all the bandages on, basically your fist looks like this. You don't make a proper fist, because in the glove you're like this.
I think it's important to say that you have the glove not to protect the partner. You have the glove to protect
the hand. And then you have the tapes and the bandages and everything. So basically you punch like this. And now in MMA you can't bandage and tape the hand as much, because you still have to be able to grab. And we had Greg Nelson in Barcelona in 2006 it was, and he's pretty big in the MMA community, should know him. And he said that's the big problem, because from boxing, kickboxing, you used to block like this, because then the gloves would touch your head. With the MMA gloves, you can't do it, because then your fingers, you will punch yourself, because there's no cover on the fingers. So you have to learn to block like this. And stuff like this. And then I thought, okay, the whole, because now you have to punch with the fist. With the glove, it's easy. You can punch hard and nothing will happen. As I said, because the glove mainly protects the fist. With thin gloves or without any gloves, I think you have to do a certain amount just to get used to the impact, that you don't harm your hands. The whole hardening stuff, we did it very young. I had one guy with whom I trained, and he was like, yeah, kick me in the head, kick me in the head, I have to get used to that. But I don't think it's the most healthy way to do it. Even in Kyokushin, we did a lot of kick the legs to get used to it, which in my opinion is complete rubbish, because it's muscle and the nerves. How do you want to toughen a muscle? You just can get used to the pain.
Or you can kill the nerves.
Exactly, But then it's a nerve and a muscle, so I don't know if you really want it. I think you can get used to absorb blows, but I wouldn't do it like in the old days. Nowadays, I wouldn't.
So, but the training with resistant, that's an important part.
For me, definitely, Working with equipment, and I think with every training modality has its good and its bad points. If you work with a partner and protection, I can work on speed. Maybe power, I can go 80%, but definitely not 100%. It's fantastic for timing, for distance. If I work on the pads, I can go 100%. It's good for distance, maybe not for timing, because I don't have to react to anything. On the back, the same thing. I can work on power, on distance. So every training modality has its benefits. And then the big thing is, what is your goal? But even for traditional karate, I would imply not just makiwara, still, because I never trained it, I still don't know the benefits of a makiwara, things which you couldn't do on a back or on pads. I would prefer working with those implements.
You also trained in the Filipino martial arts, so this is the art part of the fighting traditions. Are there any secret techniques there? Do you think that, or have you found teachers where you think, okay, they just pass on a limited amount of techniques and that they hold back?
Definitely. I mean, I had that in the Filipino martial arts. I had it when I did my second black belt, and we had this one Japanese coach there in Austria. And at that time we were kind of changing, while he was there, we were changing from kickboxing to Kyokushin, so we trained a lot without the gloves, but not heavily. And then the problem comes because we always train with full contact. And then you have the problem when the Mashigeri comes in and said, you cannot block with Uchi-oge. You must block soft. Hard technique, you block soft. And then he also said, okay, for color belts, you show block like this. You start Shodan, you start block like this. So there always was, especially the Japanese, they had, this is for the color belts, and this is for the black belts. And they even had it in Sedo Kaikan when they trained with higher belts. They always had the special technique. So this is for the broad audience. And then if they make it through, we start from the higher belts. And I think in Shudokan, you also had it up to the second, third, fourth dan, they were all considered beginners. And then you start to teach the real art. And it's the same in Filipino technique and in Filipino martial arts. With the Japanese, I did a lot. I think they still divide the knowledge for an inner circle, or the people who get up a little bit higher in the ranks. Secret techniques for me always is, I think it's a lot of people, even in the older days, that they trained various styles. Like we have in Wadori or whatever, it's karate and in jiu-jitsu together, and a little bit of kenjutsu. And I can imagine that they say, okay, for the normal guys, they do, okay, it's a block, and then you start now, this can be armbar, this can be this can be that. And let's bring in a little bit of of locks. And what I've seen, two funny stories had we when we had Hiroshiki in Austria, and at that time he was the Japanese national coach for Kyokushin. And we had a big summer camp here, and a lot of Polish guys and Russian guys coming over. And then the old generation in Japan, they trained a lot of Taikiken. So he came in with this whole Taikiken movement. And of course, all the Kyokushin guys were like, oh, what is this now? I said, okay, now we do kaki. We do soft stuff, you go with the body. And for me, for the Polish guys, it was secret knowledge. But for him, it was just, he trained Kyokushin and Taikiken. And so that's, in my opinion, were the secret techniques, because he trained something different. And the other funny thing, we had Tanaka here in Vienna once, Shudokan Tanaka, Tiger Tanaka, and he was doing a seminar. It was still old JK Karate, Ippon Kumite. Also a lot of Hungarians there and Czechs, and they were still like, wow. And then they did some randori and sparring, and if you watched him, he was moving completely soft, and he did whatever, I don't know. And you had all the hardcore Shotokan guys going, and he was just going. So he had trained some Tai Chi or whatever, some soft style. And for them it was like, oh, of course, he's the great grandmaster, of course he has secret techniques. But he just got his influence from another style. So in my opinion, that's a lot of those secret techniques, because they've trained their one style, and then they trained something different, and then they put this together.
So it's not secret.
I think that the secret techniques from one style are the common techniques in another style. Maybe in another style he just was a yellow belt.
Okay, that's.
But he doesn't teach it to. If you do karate and then you train a little bit of BJJ, and then you say, oh, I'm the fifth dan, but I also can do groundwork. And all the other karate guys go, oh, you can also move on the ground. All the secret techniques. But he just had a look for 3 months in another style. I think that's the whole.
And when we compare this to kickboxing and Muay Thai, are there any secret techniques like that?
I wouldn't call them secret techniques. I think in the Asian culture, it's still, you want to keep a little trump up your sleeve. I think that's the whole.
So you would like to keep a little bit for yourself or for the family, or?
Yeah, for the family, even for yourself, that you have a little advantage of your best students. And then maybe, like in all the Kung Fu movies, they say, I teach you the master technique. But I wouldn't call it secret. I mean, especially if you have a look at boxing, Thai boxing, kickboxing, whatever, or nowadays even with MMA, every gym trains different. I haven't been to 2 gyms that train the same way. If you go, even in boxing, in Austria, if you go to Germany, they have good, then you go to Czech Republic, they have good professional boxing. If you look at the States, if you train in Mexico, if you train in Cuba, everybody trains different. And
there are, it's not the secret techniques, there are the special techniques from gym.
Yeah, exactly, And it's like this Cuban style boxing, it's Mexican style boxing. But at the end, it's just, and boxing is 4 techniques, that's why I mentioned boxing. It's not you have to learn 4,000 techniques. Boxing are 4 techniques at the end. And still in boxing, with those 4 techniques, you have thousands of different styles, which in traditional martial arts would be considered a different style. Because if you look at a German amateur boxer, like Henry Maske was, for example, and then you look at the Cuban boxer, they move completely different.
So what are the 4 techniques?
Jab, cross, hook, uppercut, that's it. And the rest is evading and whatever. So it's a little bit more to that. But still, at the end, it's 4 offensive techniques, which are in every karate style. But and in Thai boxing, Muay Thai, maybe it's a little bit more obvious, because if you have a look at all the fights, it's a little bit, it's my style against your style. My gym fights against your gym. My gym is right Maigeri. Your gym is left Marashigeri. And then the whole 5 rounds you see right Maigeri, and the other guy goes left Marashigeri. It's style against style, which is better. It's like in the old Wushu movies, right tiger fist beats your dragon beak. It's a little bit like that. And in Thailand in the old days it was like that, in my opinion. Then the Dutch came in, they said, okay, we cannot kick them, but we can box better than them. And then the Thais also involved boxing a little bit more. And I think now it's a little bit more international, especially with K1 and everything. But in the old days, it was definitely my gym against your gym.
Mm-hmm. And is it common to train a special technique or a special combination? If you go for a kickboxing fight or a Muay Thai fight, do you just have your combination, or you just have your techniques and you decide intuitively in the fight what to use, or do you have, let's say, 2 or 3 combinations which you can do every time, like?
No, because it depends. There's an opponent who also moves.
Yeah, sure.
But I would say you have your favorite techniques. I had one very interesting talk with Peter Seisenbacher in the old days. 2 times Olympian gold, European champion, world champion.
In judo.
In judo, let's say, yeah. And he said quite nicely, he said, judo is very easy. Everybody has one favorite technique, and you're really good. You have your favorite technique, which you can apply. Your opponent knows you will apply the technique, but you still get it in. Mm-hmm. Then you know that you're good.
Yeah.
And for judo, definitely, that's the whole thing. Judo, everybody has one special technique. They don't even have a second one.
Yeah.
Or maybe they have a second one, but that's it.
Yeah.
It's like
because the Kodokan throws, if you look at them, these are 40 throws. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't be good at 40 throws.
Yeah, not to that level.
Not at that level.
And all the judo guys, for him it was funny. At his time he was very, very successful. MMA Ronda Rousey, who came from judo, mm-hmm. had an armbar,
yeah.
and was like that because she had trained it 10 million times.
Yeah.
I don't know how all the other throws would have worked. She probably knew it, but not to that extent. But once she had armbar that was there. And all the judo guys have the same thing. And in kickboxing or competition in general, as I said before, for martial arts, you have 2,000 techniques. For competition, you cut it down to 5 techniques. Mm-hmm. Some people like to kick, others like to punch, whatever. Then you have your technique and your combination, and that's what you polish.
Yeah.
And in amateur tournaments, it works different because you have to fight various fights in one day. Professional, you look what the other guy is doing, there's video analysis. Nowadays, it's easy because a lot of material is available. Mm-hmm. You analyze what the other guy is doing, you make your game plan, and then you try to stick to that game plan.
Yeah.
But as Tyson said, as soon as you get punched in the face the first time, the whole game plan is gone. But that's it. If you look at people like Tyson, he had peekaboo,
yeah.
hook.
Yeah.
Everybody knew what he's doing, but if you do it well, then it still enters.
Super interesting, Horst. I like to come to the end of the interview, and I have one last question. If somebody comes to you, a student of the martial arts, he has trained for 10 years, and you are very experienced, and he is asking you for the secrets of the martial arts. So, what are, in your opinion, the secrets of the martial arts?
Secrets.
Well, what is the secret?
The secret. Kung Fu Panda knows the secret.
Yeah.
Become a better person. I think that's the ultimate goal, I would say. Persistence is the key. Keep training, keep evolving. To become a better martial artist, look outside the box. That always was my big credo. Whenever I worked with karate people who are very stuck in there, it's just Shudokan, just Goju-ryu, to train outside the box, broaden your horizon. As I said, secret techniques, just because you don't find it in one technique, in one style anymore, maybe it's in another style. Whole kata, the whole bunkai. Nowadays, thanks to Patrick McCarthy and Mr. Abernathy and everybody, we know karate is not just punching and kicking. Yeah. There's throws, there's arm bars and everything, because they rediscovered it. The more you train, the more you know. And if you're a hostile karate guy, train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, train normal Jiu-Jitsu where there's arm bar locks with everything, and you will see the whole secret will unravel, because suddenly you see a movement and then you see, okay, this is here and here, but this also can be a throw, this can be this can be that. It's not just block. And I think that's the secret.
Super. Horst, thank you very much.
I thank you.
Vielen Dank. Uh,
Thank you.